I've always loved the woods. I've been coming out here for as long as I can remember, and today I walked through it as a card-carrying forest ranger. I preside over the trees, shrubs, and critters both big and small, and sound the alarm when and if a fire is spotted. The locals call it the Silk Forest, or sometimes the Webbed Forest. However, if you ask anyone from the reservation, you'll find they call it the Forest of Heads. This is a name that goes back a long time. Having spoken to more than a few from the res, they call it that because many generations ago, their ancestors would hunt regularly in those woods, but on more than a few occasions, they would run into these creatures, and these creatures would take the heads of anyone who was unlucky enough to be cut down. They came as a sea of chittering stares, one told me. The forest died, another said. Now I never really knew what they meant by that, dead stares or the forest died. Not until one terrible night, which will stick with me until the day I die. I wasn't the only forest ranger around here. Obviously, I was looking after the place alongside my coworker, Ted Sash. I had first met Ted when I originally applied for this job. He showed me the ropes, and from there everything was dead set. I was getting paid to watch over the very same forest I'd grown up in. Everything was fine until the trimmers started. For a while, we'd had these trimmers happen in our area. People would just be minding their own business, and then all of a sudden the ground started shaking. They were up and down for about a week, then they stopped. Then, we started finding the deer. It was just one at first, a single white-tailed buck found mutilated in some bushes. The poor thing had been torn to shreds. It was concerning at first, as cougars or bears typically eat the whole deer. They're not really into killing and leaving a mess behind. It was off-putting, yes, but it was only one. A couple days later, we found another. Then another. Then another. It was when we found the 10th corpse, we decided to start sweeping the woods in search of what was responsible. Ted and I had opted to start sweeping outside of the perimeter where each body had been found, which conveniently enough, they had been grouped together within at least a mile of each other. This would make it easier to track down whatever or whoever it was, be it some wild animal or some crazed sicko. We had reached the northeast end of the forest when we found them. The red Toyota pickup belonged to Mike Molson. He was from the res, and it was no surprise to sometimes see his truck up here. He mostly was up here with his family, showing them around the same woods their ancestors hunted within many generations before. There were other vehicles there as well, which gave me cause to assume this. I was prepared to politely ask Mike to take his family back to the res while we cleared the woods, but something seemed off. It was when I peered into the back of the pickup I found myself staring at a stash of firearms, mostly hidden under a blue tarp. I pulled the tarp back further and found makeshift Molotovs and other assorted smaller firearms. A few of the other trucks had the same contents stashed under tarps in the back. Ted and I both looked at each other. What the hell was Mike doing up here with enough weapons to equip a small army? Surely they hadn't been the ones killing the deer. We'd examined the bodies and not one bullet wound. This gave us more questions than answers, so I decided to inspect the truck while Ted scouted ahead a ways. I was rummaging through the truck's cab when I heard Ted just down the road, vomiting something fierce. I turned and saw him standing at the edge of the trail, and I could barely make out something sticking out of the bushes at his feet. I ran over to find out what was wrong. When I got there, Ted grabbed my arm, trying to use me as a support. He was still wrenched over, hanging off me and puking just behind me. Just sticking out of the bushes were two legs, and the shoes and pants belonged to Mike Molson. I'd seen him wear the same pair of both multiple times. My eyes worked their way up from his shoes towards his sternum, which was just visible through the dense bush. It was then my stomach became as turned over as Ted's. Mike's head, his damn head was missing. I could clearly see the stump where his head had been attached to his spinal column. I felt my heart break and my stomach turn inside out. I'd known him since forever. Once we collected ourselves, we ran back to our Jeep. We'd brought a radio with us, and right then we needed that to call for help. Likely a sheriff, as I was certain there was no animal that we were after. It was close to dark, and oddly enough, I'd not noticed it at first. The quiet. I had heard a bird, or seen a rabbit, or hell, not even a cougar or a bear for that matter. The forest died, I remembered them say. We both dove back inside the Jeep and promptly slammed the doors shut. I scrambled for the radio, turned it to call, and started rambling off the necessary info as best as I could. Then it happened. It was out of nowhere, from the treetops above. It was just one at first, a subtle thump. Just behind the Jeep, then another off to our left, and then off to our right. Something fell from the trees and landed on the hood of the Jeep, bouncing onto the ground. We were startled, but that's when we heard it. We hadn't noticed the windows on our Jeep were still cracked, so we could hear the slow breaking of bone and scalp. Then we heard the slow tapping against metal as something crawled onto the hood. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It came over the front of the Jeep, and it was a head. It was a head with these 8 legs sticking out of it. Through the hole where the neck would be, I could see 8 black eyes staring at me. Right then, the thing slowly emerged from the head, now using it as its lower abdomen. I didn't know what to do. What I was looking at, to call it the thing of nightmares, seemed like a mercy to myself. Within seconds, our Jeep was surrounded. As soon as I could feel my arms again, I started the car, put it in reverse, and floored it back down the trail. My heart was beating so loudly out of my chest I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Ted was losing it in the passenger seat, frantically loading the hunting rifle I kept in the back. I really regretted not grabbing any of the guns from the dead Indians. We hightailed it to the nearest ranger station. When we pulled up, we both ran from the Jeep and practically crashed through the front door. We both fell onto the floor in a scared shitless heap. I got up, gun in hand, and slammed the door and locked it behind us. Ted ran through the ranger station, yelling for Parker, another coworker. I collected whatever random shit fell out of my pocket and saw Ted rushing back to me. He said he didn't find Parker, nor was his hat hanging on the rack. That had to mean he was out. It was then I noticed an open window in an adjacent room. The kitchen. I slowly transitioned to the next room with my gun raised. I saw the small spots of blood that dotted the countertop, food spilled on the floor, the telltale sign of a forest ranger's hat. I didn't need to break myself wondering what happened to Parker, so I shut the kitchen window, and Ted and I ran to the back office and locked ourselves in. It was right when I shut the door, I heard it. The quick scuttling sound. My heart dropped into my stomach and I grabbed Ted to shush him. The scuttling seemed to slow down instantly and stop just short of the front door. I held my breath. There was nothing. It was dead silent. Ted and I just stood motionless inside the room. I had the rifle trained dead on the door, half expecting the creature to burst through at any second. I don't exactly know how long we were just standing there, but it seemed like forever. While I had been on guard, Ted had managed to grab a hold of the police. I understand that Ted probably didn't know what to tell them, so he lied and told them a killer was on the loose and we needed backup to clear the forest and look for him. It could have been further from the truth, but it was the best we could muster given the situation. I was unsure of how much help a few cops could be, but seemed more promising than a couple of forest rangers with no more than a hunting rifle and a prayer. For the time being, we were trapped in there. We both took up a spot on the floor in front of the desk. I still had my gun trained on the door. I could still feel my heart thundering in my ears, and I'd be crazy if I didn't assume Ted felt the same. I tried to focus and was running through what knowledge I had accumulated regarding the local fauna, but as far as I know, there is no such species that has anything like this from around here. From what I could tell, these things were ambush predators and were man-eaters, and there were a lot of them. My mind snapped back to reality when out of nowhere this chittering sound started up. It was coming from the trailhead and was getting closer. I never in my life had heard a sound like this which was so loud. It sounded like dozens of fast tapping keyboards. The sound quickly reached a high point as it sounded as if the things had hit the jeep, promptly setting off the alarm. Soon, they swarmed over the ranger station. Then the sound just stopped. They came as a sea of chittering stares. Those words echoed through my head. Ted and I both closed our eyes. It's been hours, and there's still been no sign of the police, or anyone else for that matter. I've been quietly writing this on some scratch paper as not to alert the things outside. In the event someone should find us, dead or alive, don't go into the forest. Don't go into the forest of heads.
Whew, alright, well that was fun. And this is the first of what are being called the fractured stories. You know what the fractured stories are? They are original creepypastas or short horror stories originally written by me, yours truly, the Musical Pumpkin. Now isn't that just a little zinger? I don't even know what to say really. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys found it as intriguing, spine-chilling, and fun, and as much as I had to write it. This took me about like a week or two to finish, like writing wise. But it was all inspired by a little sketch I did in my sketchbook, and we'll get into that at a later point, down the road. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. There will be more of these to come. Don't expect them too often, because I have to work off my bar of inspiration, and after completing this one, the inspiration bar is promptly drained. But anyways, hope you enjoyed. I hope you look forward to many, many more. If this is my YouTube channel, subscribe if you so shall choose. Leave a like, do whatever you want. I won't hate you either way. I love you. But go check out my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/musicalpumpkin. I will leave a link in the description below. And if you definitely want more of these, let me know in the comments, and I will most definitely deliver. But anyways, this was your good friend, the Musical Pumpkin, watching over your pumpkin patch, and don't go into the woods after dark, alright? You might get eaten, or your head taken off. Possibilities are endless. Bye.